Are we live? Hello everyone and welcome to this Google Plus Hangout. We're here this morning talking live from the Kingsman shop on Savile Row in London to talk about Kingsman the Collection, which is a first of its kind merchandising from a movie project where we take the costume to collection. I'm Toby Bateman, I'm the buying director at Mr. Porter. I'm talking to Arianne Phillips, the costume designer and fashion stylist, and online we have Chris John Millington, who is a photographer and a model, a man with a very good beard. We also have William Oliver from the fashion blog Fashion Beans, men's style blog, and we have Nick English, who is the one of the co-founders of Bremont, an English fine watchmaker. First, I'd like to introduce Arianne. Arianne has been working for 20 years as a costume designer. She was Oscar nominated for her work on Walk the Line and WE, and you also BAFTA nominated for your work on A Single Man with Tom Ford. The project that we've been working on together is Kingsman, and Kingsman is the first time a fashion retailer and a costume designer and a film director, Matthew Vaughn, have worked from the point of starting the movie via the costume to launch a new fashion brand. So first, I'd like to go over to Chris, who has some questions. Chris.
Hi guys, how are we all doing this morning?
Good.
Good.
Hi,
good.
Chris.
Hey, how are you, Arianne? It's lovely to finally to meet you, I guess, and speak to you about the collection.
Nice to meet you and your nice beard.
Thank you, thank you. It's I did in fact grow it myself, so I'm pretty proud of it. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, I guess the collection is absolutely amazing. I checked it out in store earlier in the week and it was absolutely beautiful, so congratulations on it. But I think the first question that I would love to ask is, from your own perspective, what would you say the key pieces of a spy wardrobe are?
I love your accent. Are you Scottish?
I am indeed Scottish, yes.
I love a Scottish accent. Okay, bear with me. What are my favorite must-have pieces from the collection? Is that the question?
Yeah. What would you say are like the key, like integral pieces of a spy wardrobe?
Of a spy wardrobe. Well, the most wonderful thing about creating this collection based on the costumes is that in the script that Matthew Vaughn wrote, everything that Harry Hart, who Colin Firth plays, our lead spy, wears has a purpose and a practicality. There's this, in the great tradition of, everyone from Get Smart, which was a popular TV show in the 60s, to, all the accoutrement, from the watch, Nick can attest to that, to the shoes. In the script, the suits are made of Kevlar, which repel bullets. So not only do they look smashing and perfect and not a hair out of place, our spies, but everything they wear has a purpose and a practicality. So there's nothing frivolous about a spy's wardrobe. It's very kind of stealth-like and purposeful and super chic, I guess.
Yeah, amazing. Because that was.
I think when we were talking about it in the early days, sort of what does a spy look like? I guess a spy tries to not look like a spy. We sort of really concentrating on what does a Savile Row gent look like and how does he dress. Is that right?
Yeah, and there's this great tradition of, one of the things that attracted me to the film as a costume designer is that incredible tradition, not only of British style and the history and the tradition of Savile Row, but spy style. I personally love all the spy movies from the 60s and everything from the kind of Michael Caine Italian Job, Harry Palmer, to Avengers and early James Bond, and that is kind of the DNA of, I think, spy, expert spy, the expert spy silhouette.
Next question, Chris.
Sure. So that was basically the perfect answer, I guess. Because one of the things that I noticed a lot in all of the imagery that's been put together is that there's a lot of use of accessories, like the umbrellas and things, and they're really interesting. So how fun was it for you being able to create these multifunctional accessories like the umbrellas and the shoes and stuff?
Well, you know, there's a lot of movie magic. We work in terms of the accessories that are props in the film, like the machine gun umbrella and the lighter that's a grenade, and you know, the cufflink that shoots darts. We worked with a combination of props and art department to create what you'll see in the film. I don't want to ruin the illusion too much, and a lot of movie magic. But it was imperative that we have all the elements created, you know, from the cufflinks to the tie. Everything has a purpose, to the optical, the eyewear. So for us, in creating the Kingsman collection, it was essential that we were going to have to kind of give the head-to-toe look. So it was kind of a no-brainer going to all these incredible British heritage brands like Turnbull and Asser for the shirts, and Drake's for the ties, and George Cleverly for the shoes, and kind of together we figured out what was going, you know, how it was going to work in the film. We developed prototype for the film, and then eventually later the collection followed up.
But I think also in terms of like the functionality of those accessories and the gadgets, this was something that in the first call we had with Matthew, and from his very early script, I think was something that he, it was this idea of this sartorial version of James Bond's gadget lab. And he'd already talked about an umbrella and a watch and glasses that you put on, and when you put them on you could sort of see your other secret agents, and so it was a sort of a delivery of that, and I think it works really well. And I think in the film people understand that it's a sartorial sort of gadget lab, but it also works well from a collection point of view as well, in terms of, you know, allows people to you know, buy into the story and buy into the brand, you know, in an easy way, rather, you know, if they don't want to wear a double-breasted suit and an overcoat.
Yeah, I mean, it's so rare. I mean, it's such an incredible opportunity as a costume designer to have all these kind of accessories and clothing be at the center of the story and the narrative, and it's such a cool opportunity to highlight that in a film, when normally those are all kind of part of the costume that isn't necessarily noted in the script. So it's really part of the story and part of the narrative, which makes it super integral and you know, not like an afterthought, and just at the center of what our story's about.
Next question, Chris.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I think that the way that you guys have pulled it all together looks absolutely amazing, and the way that it's integrated into the story is really interesting and things. So I guess the final question that I would have for you guys is, out of all of the characters that you had to style for the movie, Arianne, who would you say is your favourite spy to style, costume-wise, in the movie?
In the film?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, at the center of Kingsman is almost a Pygmalion story, where you know, we have kind of 3 generations of Kingsmen in our story. We have the elder statesman, played by Michael Caine, Arthur, who, I mean, the fact that Michael Caine, who is kind of the archetype to me of the cool British spy, is actually in our films kind of mind-bendingly exciting for me personally. So it's kind of hard. And then we have Colin, first character, Harry Hart, and he, you know, at the center point of the story, he is kind of, he's taken this kid kind of essentially from the wrong side of him and kind of making him from street thug into, you know, this elite Kingsman spy. So I love that story at the center. I love that kind of, you know, the audience goes on this journey with Eggsy, played by this fantastic new actor, Taron Egerton, and we go on this journey with him, kind of in him becoming a gentleman spy. And I think that's my favorite part.
Thanks very much for those questions, Chris. I think from a time point of view, we now are going to hand over to William.
Hi, how are you doing?
William, do you want?
Hello, how are you?
Good, good.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, very well. How are you both? Nice to meet you both.
Nice to meet you.
So the first question I was going to ask was, how did the connection between Mr. Porter and Kingsman actually kind of first happen?
Well, we've probably both got a
Start.
Shall I start?
Yeah, yeah.
From Mr. Porter's point of view, it all started around April 2013 when we had a phone call from Matthew Vaughn. And Matthew explained that he was working on this project, and he talked us through the story of the script and the fact that he was going to make a spy movie, and these spies were going to be based in a tailor's shop on Savile Row.
Mm-hmm.
And as Arianne just talked about, this kind of rags to riches story of transforming this young kid and teaching him how to be a gentleman. And at the same time, he also said that he birthed to be the lead, and he also told us that Arianne was on board to do the costumes.
Mm-hmm.
And simply, he said, I think this is a really good opportunity to do something that's never been done before, and create a brand, because there is a brand in this film, and it seems natural. And he said, you know, what do you think? You know, would you like to work with us on it? And we jumped at the chance. I mean, who wouldn't? It's an amazing project.
Indeed, indeed.
And I think part of the genius of Matthew Vaughn is, you know, he has these, so, you know, he's prolific with ideas, and, you know, he is constantly thinking of wild schemes, which sometimes seem far-fetched and other times, you know, brilliant. He called me, actually, I was in Los Angeles, which is 8 hours behind London, and he actually woke me up. It was 6 in the morning. I was completely kind of off kilter and wasn't really sure who I was talking to, and he's like, oh, this is Matthew Vaughn. I'm calling from London. And I knew Matthew a little bit, and he was saying, you know, I have this really great movie I want you to be the costume designer for. I was like, okay, cool. And he's like, it's with, you know, reuniting you with Colin Firth. I'd worked with Colin in A Single Man. I thought, oh, that's cool. I love Colin. It's an action film, and it's about, and I thought, okay. And he said, it's about gentlemen, elite British spies, and I kind of woke up a little more, and then he said, and their base of operation, like their bat cave, is a Savile Row tailor shop, and I was completely awake. And he said, and I've been speaking to Mr. Porter about having you design, along with Mr. Porter, a collection in support of the costumes that will be available to the public, really, and creating a brand on that. And it was, you know, unprecedented as a costume designer to be invited into that process. Mm-hmm. So for me, just the challenge of how that was going to come to be was completely provocative and super exciting. And I'm a huge Mr. Porter fan. I'm a customer. And I think that there's nothing more relevant right now in terms of fashion, internet, you know, e-commerce and m-commerce. I mean, the thing that's so cool is that, as we know, films have a global reach, and they have, you know, forever. That's the nature of filmmaking. It goes, you know, films travel all over the world to every country and translated into many languages. And for the first time, we have, you know, with e-commerce, we have online shopping that also is global with Mr. Porter. And just the whole persona of Mr. Porter as an American is so British, that kind of concept of a valet, and just the logo. You can see it in the logo. So it just seemed completely authentic and natural to what the story was about, and really intriguing.
And I guess that kind of leads me on to the second question, which was actually, I mean, obviously because this is an entirely new way of merchandising, I suppose, a product, a film. I mean, obviously kind of creating the costume, but then kind of moving that into what is merchandise ultimately. What was the actual process in creating the collection? I mean, what was the creative process behind that? How did you move from the costume into something which you actually see on Mr. Porter?
Well, it was really interesting because I wasn't sure, knowing that we were going to create a collection, I wasn't sure kind of how that would evolve naturally from the costumes.
Yeah.
And one thing Matthew Vaughn said, the director, as well as Toby, is that, look, we have to have a great film and we have to have great costumes, because otherwise what's the point? So I was kind of left to my own devices initially to kind of conceptualize the costumes, and the role of costumes, and as a costume designer, really is storyteller, and to create character, and I was allowed to kind of do that as a costume designer, but knowing that it had the potential to be a collection. When I was making choices, I found that it informed my process. Mm-hmm. For instance, when I was choosing fabrics, I was trying to pay attention to, well, I can potentially order it for the collection down the line, rather than maybe this fabric that's limited. Because when we make costumes for film, they're usually one-offs. Yeah. So I wanted to at least have the possibility for it to grow into a collection. And I spent a lot of time with Toby, and we discussed kind of, I was curious kind of during my process as well as to there with men and customers. But, just in terms of like, what that silhouette is, and in terms of a suit and what men are buying out there. So while it didn't really inform the characterization and the costumes, it was part of my process in that I took it in, and I was curious, because that also, I think, it's a contemporary film. So I did really, it's about British men. Mr. Porter is based in London.
Yeah.
So.
And what was important from our perspective is, or was, that if we're creating a new brand, that it had a point of difference. So when Arianne came to us literally a few weeks after our first meeting with Matthew, and had a mood board with all of these guys referenced, like David Niven and the Duke of Windsor and Noel Coward and Michael Caine, and these mood boards were covered in men wearing double-breasted suits in strong pattern fabrics. Mm-hmm. And you said, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of going quite strong. And I think you were thinking maybe that I would fall over, in shock and horror. But actually, I really liked it, because, there you have your point of difference. So now we've got this brand called Kingsman that really stands out and has its own place amongst all of the other brands that are, not only on Mr. Porter, but available anywhere.
Mm-hmm. And I think the thing for me that made it quintessentially British to me as American, because you have to bear in mind, when Matthew Vaughn called me, my first response to him was, well, why me? I'm an American. Why don't you, save the time and the money and hire someone local in London? And he said, because you have outside eyes. So that was interesting, but also created a lot of self-pressure, because I wanted to do it right and didn't want to misstep. So for me, initially, when I was doing all my research, which had kind of started in my film before, about the Duke of Windsor, W.E., yeah. I think one of the great traditions about British tailoring and Savile Row is pattern, chalk stripes, Prince of Wales, window pane, houndstooth, all that characterization that's unique to England. And I think, you didn't see that so much like in James Bond. It's more kind of evening, dinner jacket and more elegant. So I wanted to really embrace the Britishness, if you will.
Mm-hmm. How, or if any, much kind of input did the actors have into the costumes and into, I guess, ultimately into the kind of collection later on? I mean, was there any kind of pieces that they particularly loved and kind of developed, or?
Well, the great thing about a great suit is that it makes it makes up and hides imperfections and kind of encourages all the great things about a man's physique. So the most important thing, because it's an action film, and the first for Colin Firth, is that we wanted him to be able to look, it's like that cinematic thing of like, wait till you see the action in the film. It's incredible. But I wanted it, no matter what, for the suit to look perfect, even though he was doing all this kind of outrageous action. So I think just creating the architecture of a suit that worked, magic, and we had certain suits that were more action suits for filming, but I'm quite proud of that silhouette, this kind of updated Savile Row, and Colin really embraced it and was really enthusiastic, and at this point, since we work together in A Single Man, he's quite versed in men's tailoring. So yeah, actors have a lot to do just in terms of their physicality and their comfort level, and he needed to be able to do a lot of action, and he's wearing a suit. It's not like he's wearing jeans and a t-shirt.
But of all people to wear a suit, Colin Firth, as leading men go at the moment, is probably one of the best. That does it. He wears a suit. Really. I mean, he's really tall. He's got very slim. I mean, it's he's up. He's got when you look back on men that wore suits well through in movies, it's Cary Grant, Sean Connery, Colin Firth.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to have him as the main protagonist in this. David Niven. Exactly.
James Mason. Yeah.
James Mason.
Brilliant. I think we've got to move on to Nick now.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, Chris.
Can you hear us, Nick?
Hi, Nick. I don't know if we can hear Nick.
I think we.
Hi,
we can
Nick.
hear you now. Yeah.
Sorry, my microphone seems to be playing up. Are you okay?
Technical difficulties.
Very well. Yeah.
Good.
What have you got to ask us?
Far away. Sorry.
Okay, shoot. We can hear you.
Okay, brilliant. Well, no. When it came down to, obviously, we've been involved. First of all, I would like to say, saw the film for the first time yesterday, and lucky enough to go to a preview. And we took a few of our clients and to see it, and the response was phenomenal in twofold. One, people clearly loved the film, came out grinning, but also the amount of people who came out wanting to wear suits was quite phenomenal as well. So congratulations to you guys. It was very, very well done. And I'm known as a bit of a scruffer, so me coming out and wanting to wear a suit as well was something very special. But no, huge congratulations. Obviously, from your side, I just wanted to really understand, in terms of the gadgetry, we're watchmakers. We've been lucky enough to be involved with you guys, and in terms of producing the watches for Mr. Porter, being a British watch brand, it was lovely to be involved. How far did you want to go when it came to the gadgets involved? Because obviously there's quite a few in the film.
Am I going to answer that, or you? I mean, I think from a co-brand point of view, and all of the accessories and things like that, it started off with the script, the things that were in the script, but then it developed. So the watch gadget was always there, the umbrella was always there, and I think the cufflinks were, but the
glasses were always there.
The glasses,
the shoe.
But yeah, and this is where Matthew's clever, because all of these things are sort of back referencing very, very famous things from past kind of spy movies. But at the same time, we wanted it to be natural, and for those gadgets to come from people that made sense in this man's life. So when we were thinking about the total wardrobe, it was important that if this guy is having his suit made on Savile Row, then his shirt is coming from
German Street.
German Street. So we went to Turnbull and Asser because they are the iconic German Street shirt makers. It was George cleverly to make the shoes again really natural. He would buy his umbrella at Swain Avenue Brig. He would carry a Conway Stewart pen. So it's part of this whole. I'm sort of talking almost on behalf of you because it's characterization, isn't it?
No, absolutely.
But I think characterization in film and costume is no different to characterization for a retailer. And when we're thinking about the clothes and things that we sell on Mr. Porter, we have to think about who is that guy and how's he going to dress from head to toe.
I think it's just an example of authenticity. I mean, it's a world, isn't it? And this is the Savile Row spy gentleman, gentleman's world. The interesting thing, Nick, is from my perspective, kind of as an outsider, is this synergistic experience between Matthew Vaughn kind of falling in love with Vermont and your company and the watches and all that Britishness surrounding your heritage of your brand and being your military background and your all this wonderful historical aspects to what you're doing, and then how it was so natural because you were already in business with Mr. Porter. So that was like an example of, I think Toby kind of brought you to the plate and Matthew was already reaching out to you, and I could kind of see that happening, and I loved that organic quality of like, okay, this is a world that is making sense from kind of fiction to reality.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, what was really nice is, first of all, Matthew's input. I didn't quite expect him to go into quite so much detail when it came to the design, and that was.
Yeah, he was really involved. Really involved.
Really involved. So that was a really nice sort of added sort of part to the whole process, because you just don't expect a director, producer, writer to get involved in that sort of detail when it came to their product, but he did, and clearly has a lot of watches, vintage watches, and that became very, very apparent, and had very clear views of what he wanted and didn't want, which is wonderful to work with. So.
And it's not just with the watches; it was with all of the outfits. We had a very funny first meeting with Matthew when
nerve-wracking.
When we'd been talking on the phone, and suddenly I found myself in a helicopter with Arianne, and we were flying.
The first time I met you in a helicopter.
First time we met. First time I'd been in a helicopter. It was raining heavily and really windy, and I was terrified. Anyway, that's not the story. But we subsequently had breakfast with Matthew at his house, and every 5 minutes he would get up from the table and go up to the attic and come back downstairs with something that his grandfather had worn, sort of these like green velvet smoking jackets. So Matthew had a really kind of strong point of view, and still does on the.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that this is his brainchild. It's this. He wrote the script along with Jane Goldman, and it's inspired off of the graphic novel Secret Service. But this is where his, the narrative of the story is built into all the clothing, into everything. So, as filmmakers, there's story behind it. We create story, which is precisely why this project was so unique for me, because it's an organic extension, kind of costume to collection. All that energy that we spend kind of creating characters and creating story would just only support these products that now can be available to everyone. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of films that people, and mostly men actually, are like, where can I get that? Is that available? And so it's really satisfying, gratifying to know that these costumes are going to live on potentially in your closet.
Well, this is the thing. I think everyone wants to go out there and buy the whole thing now, because it was the whole set was very impressive. Yeah. So again, congratulations to you both.
Thanks very much, Nick. Thanks. I mean, final point on that costume to collection was came to life for me on Sunday night in this shop when we were presenting everything to the press. We invited some of Arianne's team from the costume department from the film, and seeing the clothes that they had helped produce to make the film in reality hanging on a rail in a shop and for sale, they were quite emotional, because their process normally stops when filming ends and all of that hard work kind of vanishes, and so that's been a bit of a added bonus, I suppose.
Yes, completely gratifying.
Yeah. Right, and wrapping up now, thanks very much to Chris and William and Nick for contributing this morning, and thank you very much everyone that's watched us on this Google Plus Hangout.
Thanks, Google Land.
I'd just like to close by saying how excited we are at Mr. Porter to have worked on this project, and that the Kingsman collection is available for sale now on mrporter.com, so if anyone's interested, check it out. And we've got some really great content on the site as well around spies, which is really good fun and interesting to watch. So
Friday the movie's released in the UK, and in a month's time in America.
Yeah. So thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thanks, guys.